A state-private university in a green and non-toxic campus with a global pedagogy backed by the Birla legacy and celebrating the varied cultural diversities to create ethical global leaders. Welcome to Birla Global University.
Thank you, sir. Now I would request our student volunteers to welcome our esteemed dignitaries.
Thank you very much, sir, for your kind acceptance. It feels great pleasure to introduce our chair of the session, Dr. R.D. Sharma, former Vice Chancellor, Jammu University, Jammu, India. Dr. Sharma has wide-ranging rich experience of teaching, research, and extension in business education and administrative experience at different levels. Dr. Sharma has also worked as Vice Chancellor, University of Jammu from October 30th, 2015 to July 25th, 2018. During his tenure, the University of Jammu got A+ NAC grade in 2016 and stood 64th in 2016, 63rd in 2017 and 51st in 2018 as per the NIRF ranking. Besides Category 1 University page 2 of 41 in terms of grade autonomy of UGC and thus got 100 crores for enhancing teaching and research. Thank you very much. Please, sir.
So very good afternoon. I have given both pleasant and little unpleasant task also. The pleasant that I am chairing the session with the presentation by the learned speakers having done pioneers studies in their own area and also researchers from different parts of the country and foreign countries also, along with research scholars. Professor Sudhakar Pandaji, the Vice Chancellor of the University. Dr. Harivansh Chaturvedi ji. Professor Alexandra, Dr. Yohan Role, Dr. Surat Ke Acharya, Professor J.K. Mitra Sahab, other learned faculties whose names not with me, from different parts of the world, faculty members of Birla Global Universities, and dear students. After such a brilliant session, brainstorming sessions, giving you 2-3 major points, really set the tone before the paper presenters in different sessions, and moving around that over a period of time the business trends, business practices and business education, whether it is the outcome of all of these that inequalities over a period of time increasing. That certain statistics Chaturvedi ji presented draws the attention of everybody, and particularly the academicians and practitioners. And it is in this direction that the universities, they have to put their courses in place, that they are in a position to understand that can the business world continue with the main objective of optimization, increasing the wealth of the shareholders, which is increasing the inequality. And as learned chief guest today said, that yes, nothing wrong in maximization of profit, but inequality, of course, has to be taken care of. So both are important. Inequality has to be reduced and profit has to be maintained. In all, we have 10 papers and 2 keynote speakers. The learned key speaker, without standing between you and the keynotes, I request Banikant Mishra ji, a professor from Xavier Institute of Management. He will be having maximum time because majority of the people present over here, they are interested to listen to the key speakers who have done pioneer job in their own area of specializations and come with their lifelong experience to share with the delegates. So I request Mishra ji kindly take up. Then of course thereafter 10 papers are there, and we have about 1 hour. So time accordingly to all other papers. Thank you very much.
Is he bringing my file in there? Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, those from the third sex, transgenders, or any other way you would like to identify yourself, which I, of course, respect. And I'm very honored to be here and a pleasure to be here. Whenever Parameshwar invites me and says that, Bani Bhai, can you come, Dr. Din Naik? I said, look, if you invite me, I don't have a choice to say no, right? I have to come. Like a cricketer, I don't, I come 4th or 5th down. I don't feel too happy if the wickety of people. In fact, in US, recently, a few years back, the providers of capital threatened to withdraw their money, threatened to withdraw the finance, unless the CEO, who was a lady, was fired because she had financed opposition to same-sex proposal in a state in US. So could you have imagined that a few years back, that the providers of capital, business finance, corporate finance being so sensitive to such social issues? We couldn't have imagined that. So the reason I'm highlighting is that there's so many issues have come up, and partly because of technology, we are more aware, I think we're freer world nowadays and all that. We become very conscious as to what people say, what people do, what people think and all that. Next slide, please. Do I have a control? How do I go? Next slide.
Slide changer, this will take you to the next.
Yeah. Where do I click? Is it on? It's on.
Yeah.
No, this is, red is on or green is on? You can just take to the next slide. Yeah. You'll do that. All right. Okay. All right. When we talk about business finance, I will not make a distinction between business finance and corporate finance. And corporate finance is much more generic for corporations, but I think there is a very thin line. We can very broadly call any finance, corporate finance, business finance, or as long as you're providing capital to a business entity, we can call it business finance, corporate finance. So I'll be keeping them more as synonymous. So, but we start with savings by the people and finally end up with return on investment, which people get and the corporations get. So that's what I said, from savings to investment. And so at the individual level, it's a very simple game. They save, they identify good investment avenues, bonds, stocks, equity, and all that, and they invest. For corporations, it actually follows a longer process, much longer process. They identify good investment opportunities, then raise capital, then invest, and they supervise the investment which is going on. Then they report the cash flows, then they distribute the cash flows, and finally they reinvest the cash flow they retain. And when you're talking about business finance, I want to focus on different issues that have emerged during the last 10, 20 years, in this path that the business finance takes. For instance, how do you identify good investment opportunities? Nowadays, the role of research and development has become far more important than it used to be a few decades back. Companies are realizing you cannot identify good investment opportunities without serious research and development. And what is giving a big push to this R&D is, as all of you know, is big data. The data analytics, business analytics has become very important. We have fantastic computer power to analyze a lot of data, and that is making life so much easier to identify patterns in purchase, patterns in people's behavior, and to identify what products will sell well. And that's where I see a lot of things in the future, focusing on that, using big data as a part of research and development to identify good investment opportunities. Raising capital, that's facing one of the biggest problems nowadays, is truthfulness. As business has prospered, more money is raised, but as more money is raised, there's so much more fraud, so much more misreporting, so much more cheating, and that is bothering the world all around. All regulators in every country, if they honestly confess to you, they would say, look, trust is a big problem. The trust deficit is a very serious issue in the capital markets all over the world. Now, when our managers raise the capital, and suppose they even honestly raise the capital without giving any wrong impression about the projects and all that, where they invest, that is also a serious issue. As a manager, am I going to invest in projects which is best for me, best for my company, best for the society? Do I care whether society loses and company gains? Do I care if company loses and I gain? These are called agency problems. The manager is an agent of the corporation who has been given the task of investing in the money in the right projects, but the manager can play games, and agency problems we're not even conscious of 20, 30 years back, but we're realizing agency problem is a very serious problem. And particularly, even in the context of environment and all that, we're realizing corporations are agents of the society in investing the savings of the people, but the corporations are also indulging in investments which are harmful for the society at large. And that's a big challenge, big challenge. How to sensitize the corporations, or how to resolve these agency problems. And that challenge will continue, I'm sure, for the next few decades. That's going to be another big challenge. And after invest, when we supervise the projects, whether the cash flows are fine, are there worries, are there risks, how do you manage the risk? Risk management is going to be a big challenge. It has always been a challenge, but it's going to be a bigger challenge. And I think I'll point out in one of my future discs, but let me tell you briefly at this point, why is risk management a challenge? because I think we do not understand risk management. In fact, we do not even understand risks inherent in projects and even in business finance. I think 2007-2008 meltdown was partly because of the failure of the financial managers, of public and the corporations to understand the financial models they're dealing with, the financial instruments they're dealing with, and the risks they're dealing with. Everyone got excited about fancy mathematical models which we don't understand. And they thought, oh, if I don't understand, it must be a great model. And later on, when they understood the models, it was too late. The whole global capital market went through a big slump and a big meltdown and all that. And there was a failure to realize, one of the very basic facts of finance they failed to realize while this global market was, pre-2007, just before meltdown, is that whatever fancy financial engineering we may be engaging in, unless cash flow is increasing, wealth is not being created. Entering into some fancy derivative contracts is not going to increase the cash flow. It's going to change risk from one party to another. And when you're passing on risk from one party to another, you have to be sure that the party who is taking the risk is capable of accepting the risk, handling the risk. That didn't happen. And I'll come back to that. That's an important point. That's one of the biggest failures that we saw during the meltdown, that how financial risk management went for a toss and all that. Now, reporting cash flow has been going through severe problems, and it will continue to go through severe problems. In fact, managers try to signal how well they're doing through financial reporting, and they use this reporting as a signal. Sometimes when you cannot clearly convey to the other side what you actually want to say, you use some signals. Managers also use signals to convey to the shareholders how the company is doing. And that is where a lot of new challenges are being faced. In fact, one of my students is working on earnings management, how managers manipulate earnings to give a false image of the company to the shareholders. Again, that is also to do with trust, but this is trust at a different level. One, trust is when you're raising capital, giving a proper picture to the potential providers of capital. Second, trust is telling the providers of capital how well we are doing. That's again going to be a very big challenge, and we'll talk about some of the solutions and all that. Fortunately, because of big data, some solutions are emerging, and I will talk about that briefly. Now, when you distribute cash flows, governance issues has to come in. Are you going to fairly distribute the cash flows? Are some big shareholders, can they blackmail you so that you will be forced to buy their shares at a very high price? Okay, what we used to call green mailing. Okay, green mailing and all that. So green mailing is some big shareholders threatening the company, and finally the company saying, okay, we'll buy back the shares from you at a much higher price. So governance issues are going to be very important, directly impinging on the sources of business finance and corporate finance. And finally, of course, when you start reinvesting, you go back to square one and keep on addressing all the issues. Next slide, please. Next, please. Okay. Now, long back, in business schools, we used to say teaching or research. Nowadays, we don't say that anymore. We say teaching and research. The degrees only varies. Similarly, long back, business used to say we can be either socially responsible or financially viable. That is history. You have to be socially responsible and financially viable. You cannot get rid of your obligation to be socially responsible. Okay. In fact, in that light, what are the issues that are coming up to the picture when financial viability is clashing with, conflicting with, and in some sense, even embracing social responsibility? Yeah, people have talked about in the first one and all that. In fact, when Sudhakar sir was describing the first session's speakers, Dr. Chaturveji's worry about inequality and poverty and all that, I ran to an ENT. I said, is my ear right? Business school professors being so worried? I was very happy Dr. Chaturvedi talked about that. We don't, and trust me, We may talk about it. 90% in the people in this room do not care about poverty. We do not care about poverty, inequality, and all that. Why would it, even don't trust me? I always tell when I give a speech, don't trust me. I may be the biggest hypocrite. Of course, I will say inequality bad and poverty is bad, because why? That's the way people will say, oh, good thing and all that. We all feel happy. I spoke against inequality. Am I going to be sincerely working towards getting rid of inequality? In business, we're in business. Is it possible? Yes, I believe it's possible. Are we genuinely interested? I'm not sure yet, but that's going to be a big challenge. And don't think Occupy Wall Street happened only in US. Okay, it's not going to happen only in New York, Joanne. It's going to happen in Bhubaneswar if you're not careful. We have a lot of mining guys making a lot of money, a lot of inequality in Orissa. If we are not careful, this will happen here. We have to be careful. We have to realize how to create sustainable business, sustainable defined very broadly, very broadly. Now, private benefit versus social cost has always been an issue. These externality problems have always been an issue. There's a fascinating article by Hill. You should read that if any of you are interested in this conflict. He has shown how companies like British Petroleum realize, they used to be selfish in the beginning, but when they started worrying about the greenhouse gas emission, they realized that if they become careful in greenhouse gas emission, they themselves are saving money. Their own profit is going up. So doing good to the society, they also did good to themselves. So because they thought about it, they research about it, they realize that there doesn't always have to be a conflict between private benefit and social cost. That somehow the social cost can be internalized, can be assimilated to create even private benefit. And that sure companies realize. Long back when I used to be PhD student, like some of you, we had heard about this green dividends. So there are investors who would say that, will tell Philip Morris that we will buy your shares only if the dividend on the share will come from all divisions, but not from your cigarette division. Of course, by the way, I smoked. Okay, I smoked that day. So I didn't have this principle, that dividend has to come from environmentally friendly divisions. So Philip Morris will give dividends not from Marlboros and all that, I think whatever they produce, cigarettes and all that, from good divisions. So those two, we used to call them green dividends, dividends from environmentally friendly subsidiaries. Nowadays, of course, as many of you would have known, of course, there are green bonds. Apple and all that have raised money through green bonds. So the green bonds, people are saying, we'll give you money if this money will go towards making the world greener, or some purpose which will serve towards environmental friendliness, reducing the carbon footprints, the greenhouse gas effects and all that. And so that is an interesting transition, saying that we'll take dividends only from the divisions which are environmental friendly, saying we'll give you money to invest in environmentally friendly projects. That's a good trend. And I think business finance, a lot will go in that direction. But of course, I have concern, I will come back to that in my next slide, that why are we saying that use our money only in making this a greener world? The world has other issues. As again, Dr. Chaturvedi said, the world has issues of poverty, inequality. Can the providers of finance bring in those issues when providing capital? I will talk about that. We'll come back to that. Environmental reporting is going to be extremely important if we go out to raise finance. Okay. Earlier, we could write 2 lines and no one is going to audit it. Now, in fact, environmental reporting auditors will become so strict that they will penalize corporations who do not very clearly specify what steps they are taking to become environmentally friendly. In fact, one of the big investment bankers, some rock, I forget, I don't know if you remember, they blacklisted all companies which are vague in their environmental commitment and said, we will not give a penny to these corporations unless they're very clear as to how they will be environmental friendly. And I think that trend should continue, and that trend is going to continue. I had already said corporate governance is going to be very important. Governance is a problem is, who would create corporate governance? We, the CEOs and all that, have to create corporate governance. The managers have to create corporate governance. But people have to speak up for corporate governance to come in. The problem is, I believe, all over the world, we are speaking less. I have noticed that and Joanne may disagree with me, in US universities, 20, 30 years back, we could say whatever we want. I think in US universities, even once I admire, I think the freedom of speech has gone down. And what to speak of India? I think in India, not just the universities, I believe the society as a whole, we're saying speak less. We all have to be nice guys. If we have nice guys, corporate governance will never come in. And I will urge my PhD student colleagues, academician colleagues and all that look, corporate governance is not necessary just for businesses. For India, governance is extremely important. And if we have to speak up, we have to speak up right now. And please don't blame any political party, any government and all that. Don't say BJP did this, Congress did all that. We as citizens are responsible for failure of governance, be it in business, be it in society, and be it in the world at large. So, and that is, by the way, going to be a very, very serious issue in raising capital in the future. Okay, don't think business finance will be oblivious to the need for governance in the corporations. And risk appreciation management, as I said, in the meltdown, so one of the biggest lessons in the meltdown, people who had provided capital, they said, look, we expected that insurance companies will protect us when things go wrong. But the insurance companies themselves went bankrupt. I mean, who will insure the insurance companies? I always say that reminds me, चिंगारी कोई भड़के तो सावन उसे बुझाए, सावन जो अगन लगाए उसे कौन बुझाए? What can you do when insurance companies go down? And one trend we saw all over the world during that meltdown is the refusal of governments to actually say, you have taken the risk, you face it. They didn't say that. They said, oh, it's too big to fail. We cannot allow big companies to fail. We must tell big companies, if you don't appreciate the risk, if you don't manage the risk, you got to fail. That's the only way the business finance will bring in the discipline. Okay, the providers of finance will bring in the discipline that companies which are taking risk by playing with our money are not allowed to take that risk anymore. Next slide. I think Dr. Sharma must be repenting why he said that you have a free field. Okay, I should be completing shortly. Now, we professors, whenever people ask them that, talk about anything, we said that we must make a distinction between two things, the positive approach and the normative approach. Positive approach says what is happening in anything, what is happening in business finance. Normative approach says what should happen in business finance. As a professor, as an academician, we should always focus on normative approach. And for that, we need to have the courage to speak, courage to refute people, courage to counter, but that also should be backed by research. We should do research ourselves so I can say, look, based on my research, I believe this is right, this is wrong, and all that. So what are the things that should happen based on what I just said and all that? What are the things what should happen in the world of business finance? As OECD wrote in its report, that trust is a big, big problem. It's looking forward, it's a big, big problem. Somehow trust has to be brought into the capital market. Long back, 6-7 years back, one of my friend called, DP Duveri, I told him, hey, Duveri, why don't you give a talk on XIMB? He keeps coming here as a consultant. He said, I'll give a talk on trust. I said, what? He said, trust. I said, are you crazy? Talk about some financial derivatives, some instruments, and all that. What trust? He said, Bani, trust is important. I said, no. Then I asked him to give a talk, and he gave a talk. Then I realized, yes, trust is so important. We just took it for granted. No more. So trust creation, we have to look at how trust can be created. In fact, we have to come up with equilibrium models of trust creation. Many times, just as discipline has to be imposed, trust has to be brought out. I don't think fundamentally, companies will be trustworthy. You have to ensure there are things in place so they are forced to be trustworthy. That being truthful should be the first best solution. Now, startup financing is going to provide a fantastic opportunity, and for that we need to have financial engineering. And why I'm saying startup financing, there are many, many ideas in many corporations which are good for the society, but they are dying out because big corporations are not interested in it. So a brilliant guy in a big corporation sees something good I can do for the society. They say, no, society you can do, we are not interested. So that's where someone said, okay, I will go out and start my own company. And when you go to raise money, people say, no, startups, we're not interested in, too risky and all that. We have to realize startups, good startups. I know there could be 100 bad ideas. So as we say that, let not one good man suffer, let 100 bad men get away. Similarly, let not one good idea fail to get finance. Okay? In the process, if we finance 100 bad projects, so be it. Because good project, particularly good for the society, we have to have that in our mind. Small firm financing has been a problem and continues to be a problem. I'll give you a small example. Long back in US, Mike Milken realized that small firms are having difficulty raising capital because the banks are squeezing them, demanding very high interest rate and all that. And what can we do for them? So then Drexel Burnham Lambert said, look, we will make a market. We'll tell the small firms, you issue bonds at a high interest rate. We'll tell people, buy these bonds. If you're not happy, sell it back to us. We'll stand ready to buy. And that gave a big boost to financing of small firms. That became the junk bond market. Unfortunately, Mike Milken got astray, and such a brilliant guy finally ended up probably behind bars, which is a very sad thing. Such a brilliant guy in every finance corporation, he will make such an excellent point. His fundamentals are superb. His heart was great. He actually worried about small firms and socially discriminated groups. Okay? And we have to start thinking about that are there socially discriminated groups? And India is full of socially discriminated groups. We discriminate left, right, and I'm a Brahmin speaking, by the way. I know how my forefathers have discriminated against the whole country. Okay? So we have to be conscious, careful, find out socially discriminated groups who need financing, who have good ideas, we need to finance them. That is very, very important. And just like we're green bonds, we're saying take the money and do something environment friendly. Why can't you think of job bonds? We'll say that we give you the money provided you create employment. That should be a part of the condition for providing money. India needs employment badly. World needs employment badly. Just like environment is going down, so is employment. So I think, this is my suggestion, when you think whether it's a good or bad idea, we should start issuing employment bonds. That give us money, we'll create jobs. And of course, the environmental sensitiveness, of course, will be increasing. We realize that we have to be far more environment sensitive. And I've already said that people are worried about this risk management. I heard in one of the countries, I think in India, pension funds are being invested in the equity market. Give me a break. You have to be careful where you are investing money. You can't invest something for social security in the stock market. It's gambling. Of course, I love to gamble. I have to go to Atlantic City and gamble, or Vegas and gamble. Don't gamble with my retirement funds. So those hidden financial management have to come in. One of the things I mentioned about financial frauds and forensic accounting and all that. Forensic accounting. I think that there's a big improvement in the financial fraud capturing forensic accounting. That is, people are. Big data is helping in financial forensic accounting. Interesting, one of my students, my professor, Dr. Mahapatra, in fact, also of our PhD member, he was telling us how in the US they're using Benford's law to capture financial frauds. And those of you who have not heard of Benford's law said that if you pick up things in real life, be far more careful that in a big market, so much money is being raised and so much is being done, then a lot of fraud will take place. So that's why you have to realize, just like in a big party, there's much chance of snatching, corruption, and misdemeanor and all that. You have to be very careful. Big capital market and very joyous capital market things can go wrong, so we have to be very careful. And we used to have golden handshakes. Big guys will leave, we give them $1 million around that. I think we should stop all that nonsense. I think CEOs, we should give them what I call in my language, aluminum cups when they're in office. And if they say, well, I'm going to leave, give them silver handshakes. Don't give them big This golden handshake is a way to rip off the corporation. The corporation is going to dodge, but the CEO will be going out saying, oh, I've left the company and I'm going to Hawaii to have a vacation. It's ridiculous. Hard on money of people. Okay? And we finance persons say, oh, these are brilliant ideas and all that. And finally, don't ask me, as you're saying that, old song or old poem goes of cabbages and kings. Now this cabbages and kings is substituted by of bitcoins, blockchains, and cryptocurrency. Remember what we were taught when we used to be kids. Money is accepted because it is accepted. Now, if bitcoins, blockchains, and cryptocurrency is accepted because it's accepted, is that a problem? It's a big problem. Business schools will not agree with this statement. Finally, good or bad, governments are required. Governments are the best. Never can self-management be good for a country, because the moment regulation of a country goes to the private hands, finally the power will get concentrated. So we need some regulations. We need that the society as a whole should regulate itself, and that's what we call government, self-governance. We have to make the governments honest, accountable about that. The solution is not to say, the government is not working, let me have a parallel government. And, all right, I will not bore you anymore. Thank you very much for lending me ears. My pleasure to have spoken to you.
Thank you, sir. We have our next speaker, Professor Dr. Radhe S. Pradhan.
Thank you, Professor Mishra. Business finance. Note on the session. I'm very sure we have people in the audience must be having some queries. Very eagerly they would be waiting. So, just quick one question, if you permit. So, only 3 questions. Then we'll go to the other paper. So, you raise your hand, introduce yourself, and put the question. Yes, faculty from Junior Finance. It's okay. Thank you. Yeah, very good.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Bhubaneswar. I am teaching at Global University. Sir, you have discussed a lot of different things, like the trend in the new banking scenario in the financial industry. The blockchain and the Bitcoin are setting the new trends. Lots of research, like one of the report by McKinsey and Deloitte. They say that the deep industry are first who is going to respond and others are going to follow the same. Yes, it's true, sir. Blockchain kind of things which we have often distributed later, this is going to solve many problems. So if you relate very popular scheme of Nirav Modi, it has been said in the same report and many times in PT that if this kind of technology get adopted, so at least PM is supposed to be informed about the scam. So this is going to solve the problem, and again, as you said, it is going to create the problem. So how to deal with and how to become compatible in coming future?
Do we need blockchains? On the street, the street vendor protected from counterfeited coins because it's blockchain. And blockchain cryptocurrency, all that will still be belonging for quite a long time, if not forever. Is, will there be a second power center emerging in the side through these bitcoins, blockchains, and cryptocurrencies? Because you realize, in fact, one of my friends had given a very nice suggestion. He said, currency have done a fantastic thing. We are taught movement from barter to currency. And he was telling me, Bani, if we move back to barter, things may get better on some dimensions. At least there probably will be less poverty, less inequality. We should think about it. So, and we are creating new currencies. Okay? So as I said, I'm sure these are solvable problems. My worry is anytime you come up with anything parallel,
on January 24, 25, 2020, and I would like to congratulate Birla Global University School of Management for organizing this kind of international conference, that also on a very relevant topic. Mainly, I would like to congratulate Professor Dr. Bhubaneswar for taking initiative and leadership in organizing this international conference. I had an occasion to attend his conference 2 years ago. At that time also I could see a lot of academic activities taken place in that international conference, and I believe that this international conference will also be a grand success with a lot of academic activities. I extend my best wishes. Thank you.
Okay, now I invite paper presenters, and I request them to kindly maintain the time, because we have to break at 1:30, maybe 5 minutes later, and it is already 1:15. And now I learned that only 5 papers are they are available for presentations.
Yes, sir.
6.
So 5 presentations. Right now we'll be having 5 presentations.
5 presentations now.
The rest presentations will be having tomorrow in a parallel session.
Okay. Fine. So kindly keep in mind, though papers are already available here, in the light of the message from the keynote, that socially responsible and financially viable, with the purpose to create employment and maintain environment friendly. So first paper presenter, Vessels Norms in Indian Banking Industry and its current status, a review-based study. So there will be just one quick question after the presentation, and each paper presenter is getting 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes. So please. Not present?
May I request the presenter to please come up and have his presentation?
Any one of them? Okay. Yes, come in. There are-
Good afternoon to everyone. Myself Seelam Sharma, MPhil from Shambalpur University. Now I am going to presenting my paper. Paper name is my Basel norms in Indian banking industry and its current status, a review-based paper. These are my highlights of my paper. Now, NPA is a common problem that banks face across the world. Basel norms were introduced to increase the operational efficiency of the banks. Basel norms is an effort to coordinate banking regulation across the globe with the goal of strengthening at the international banking system. These are the research questions. Now directly come to this point, objective of my paper, to study the history of Basel norm, to study the impact of Basel III norms on Indian banking industry, and last one is to study the current status of Basel III norms on Indian banking industry. Now methodology, the paper is mainly a review paper where data has been collected from national and international journal. To fulfill the objective of the study, a review of literature have been done to get an overall idea about the Basel norms and their current status.
Madam, you come straight to your findings.
Yes, thank you.
Because you have limited time. Don't go into the detail of methodology and all that. Come to the findings.
Okay. Findings. Now I'm directly come to my findings. Review of literature revealed that implementation of Basel III norms has a big challenges for all the banks during the development of FETCH, that is 1998 to till date. These challenges are functional challenges, technical challenges, and organizational challenges. Banking industry has been affected mostly in terms of crisis of debt, credit crunch and bankruptcy. The Basel II norms failed to assist bank for giving financial assistance to this falling sector of economy. The performance of private bank and foreign bank was more prominent compared to PSU banks. The SBA Bank in India to a large extent was unaffected by global crisis, and resilience of the banking sector was marketed by improvement in the capital base, asset quality and profitability. Conclusion last, Indian banking sector is at a dormant stage due to the problem of debt, credit crunch and bankruptcy. The current Basel III norms are not sufficient to revive the banking sector of the economy.
Thank you. Thank you, madam. Would you like to have one question from the audience?
Yes, sir.
Okay, one quick question. Just on that brief presentation. Okay, thank you very much. Now, next paper, promoter maturity dividend policy, evidence from regular peers in India. Yes.
Good afternoon all.
You are Soumya Ranjan?
Yes.
Okay, please go
Good
ahead.
afternoon all. I am Soumya Ranjan Rai Chaudhary, Research Scholar, Kids School of Management. My topic is promoter and farm age effect on dividend policy. evidence from regular payer firms in India. And objective and scope of my study is, the present study attempts to examine the relationship of promoter contribution and firm age with dividend policy in India. Indian firms listed in Bombay Stock Exchange during 2017 to 2007 to 2016 are considered for the study. The nature of the data is completely secondary. Methodology. Next slide, please. Since the database poses the characteristics of both cross-sectional and time series, panel data econometrics was used to access the relationship. There is the equation over there. Fixed effect panel data modeling is useful for estimating the impact or bias of variables within a company. Methodology. If the differences across companies are assumed to be random and not subject to any bias, then we can progress our research with random effects modeling. In random effects model, the interpretation is more generalized for a specific sample. Hussman test is being employed to select between fixed effect and random effect. The null hypothesis favor random effects, whereas the alternative hypothesis support fixed effect models. That are the methodology that I implemented over there. Some dependent and explanatory variables are there. Like dividend payout ratio is a variable, and estimation method like dividend payment as percentage of profit after tax, and the symbol is DIV. And past dividend pattern, average of last 3 payout ratio is the method, and PD is the symbol. Operating profit growth, EBITDA, earning before interest, depreciation and tax, change from previous year, and OP is the symbol. Growth, change in asset from previous year, GR is the symbol. Next is quick ratio, current asset excluding inventories to current liability, QR is the symbol. Size, logarithm of total asset, SIZ is the symbol. Promoter holding, ratio of shares held by promoters to total number of shares, PRO is the symbol. Leverage, long-term liability to total equity, DE is the symbol. Cash earning per share, ratio of cash flow from operation to number of shares, CEPS is the symbol. And there are some tables. Next slide, please. Next slide. Next. This is the overall findings. This is a tabular format. And we took 2 different firms, like older firms and younger firms, and the conclusion is this. Overall findings: past dividend pattern and growth has a significant negative impact on current payout. Promoter liquidity, operating profit, cash flow and size have significant role in payout policy. Debt has a positive influence on payout policy. So we can say that debt is the only influential factor for the dividend policy, payout policy. Older firm, past dividend and growth have a negative influence on current payout ratio. Promoter and leverage have a positive influence on current payout ratio. For younger firms, only past dividend and cash flow have a significant negative influence on current payout policy. Operating profit and liquidity have no role in decision of current payout policy. Implications. Findings from the study suggest that Indian firms rely on past dividend pattern and the leverage to set their current payout ratio. However, the older firms rely on promoter decision and utilize debt as a financing mechanism for dividend payments. Surprisingly, for younger firms, increase in cash flow has a negative impact on dividend payout. This indicates younger firm decision to retain cash instead of dividend disbursement. Thank you.
Thank you, Soumya Ranjan Rai Chaudhary. You have applied mathematical equation on the data you have collected from different sources. So any quick question to Chaudhary? Thank you very much. So nice. Next presentation, investors' perception towards mutual funds in Kathmandu Valley. So who's presenting? Bhupendra Dhami? All of you? Oh, good. So coordinate in a way that it is completed within say 4 or 5 minutes. Okay, good. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Birla Group and Uniglobe College for this wonderful opportunity. So this is our presentation outline. Please go through it. So mutual fund is like basically something that people pool together money and then you invest in something else. So mutual fund was actually brought it by the Dutch Republic due to the financial crisis of 72 and 73. So our research questions are the following. Which of the factors play an important role in mutual fund? The factors are knowledge, trust, risk and safety, and return. Objective of the study is, the measure of the objective of the study is to examine the investors' perception towards mutual fund in Kathmandu Valley. So to basically say this, we wanted to know the impacts of the factors that I just mentioned.
So we have organized the literature review as review of major studies, review of recent studies, and the review of Nepalese studies. Next, please. This table 1 shows the review of the major studies continuously. Table 2. Next slide, please. Table 2 shows the review of the major studies. Table 3 shows the review of the recent studies. And finally, the last table shows the review of Nepalese studies. Moving toward the conceptual framework, based on the literature review, we have recognized these 4 independent variables: knowledge, return, trust, risk, and safety. The relationship between dependent and independent variables is measured by using the Kendall's top correlation test and regression model. Research hypothesis. On the basis of literature review, we assume that there is a positive relationship between all the independent variables and dependent variables as H1, H2, H3, and H4. Research methodology. Our study is based on the primary data which was gathered from the 100 respondents through online questionnaire. The study has employed the descriptive and causal comparative research design. The data are examined by using statistical package for social science SPSS software. We have used the descriptive statistics, correlation analysis, and regression analysis in order.
Let next take up.
In order to derive the finding.
Go present. Next go present.
Moving toward the model specification. On the basis of the framework and methodology we discussed earlier, we developed this regression model where investor perception is the functions of knowledge, return, trust, risk, and safety. And all the variables were measured by using 5 Likert scale, where one indicates the strongly disagree and 5 indicates the strongly agree. So to test the reliability of our data, we tested the Cronbach's alpha, where all the variables were above 0.7, which indicates that the data is acceptable and reliable to use. Moving toward the data analysis and presentation. This is the Kendall-Tau correlation coefficient matrix. It shows that the knowledge, return, trust, risk, and safety all are positively related to the investor perception towards the mutual fund. And this table shows the estimated regression results of knowledge, return, trust, and risk and safety on investor perception. So the major findings from these analysis was that the knowledge is positively related to investor perception, and it indicates that better the knowledge, it encourages the peoples to
invest more on mutual fund. Likewise, all the variables were positively related with investor perception, and higher the value of variables indicate higher investment in mutual fund.
So the findings we found were like they showed like they were in compliance to the researchers that did their research on this topic before. So the main thing is like knowledge, risk, trust, and return. They all have like positive impact on investors' perception regarding mutual fund. So next.
Great, excellent, excellent.
Yes. So the main thing is like the return is the main thing that why the investors want to invest in mutual fund. And second, it's because of trust.
Fine.
Because mutual fund is a reliable option. So that's what
Very
we found out. And I'd like to thank everyone for listening.
Good, very good, excellent. So one question, though 4 presenters, and we are very happy that 4 of them, they presented themselves and coordinated in a nice way. So one quick question, any one of them can respond to that questions. Quick one question. Okay, thank you. So nice. Thank you. Yeah. Now next is long memory in developed and emerging equity markets. So 2-3 presenters. Who's presenting? Ashok Kumar.
Thank you, sir. And with all humility at my disposal, I thank BGU for this opportunity to me. Also, I thank my co-author, Professor Sivanjan Misra. This is a research paper which is worked upon till now. This is long memory in developed and emerging equity markets. Next slide, please. The objective is to investigate the long memory dynamics of the daily stock index returns of developed, emerging, and frontier markets. Next slide. These are the previous literatures. In these literatures, some of the researchers, they have supported the presence of long memory, and some of the researchers, they have opposed the presence of long memory in different markets. And the possible reason for these contrasting findings is that over the time, the persistence might change, argued by some researchers like Coraja and Glean and Bennett and Gartenberg. Next slide. The gap after I have given, due to paucity of time and the less number of slides, I have not given more literature service. We have found the gap. The previous literature failed to investigate the issue in group of countries which are in their different stages of development. So therefore, we have subsampled 33 countries into 3 classes, namely developed, emerging, and frontier economies, and make a comparative analysis of these 3 different groups of countries. This paper is also trying to study the persistence in the pre-crisis and post-crisis. The crisis period has been taken 2007 and 8, as well as in the up and down markets. Go to the next, please. Please go to the next slide. The methodology has been adopted here. One parametric test which has been adopted, that is Hurst coefficient, and 2 semi-parametric, one is GPH and RGAC has been conducted. If H Hurst coefficient is 0.5, uncorrelated series, that means future is independent of the past. If it is between 0.5 to 1, that there is a persistence or reinforcing of series, that means the series will continue. If it is going up, it will go up in the future. If it is going down, it will go down in the future also. H is less than 5, that is anti-persistent series. That means the future is up means, the past is up means the future is down, and the vice versa. As well as the GPS indicators have been given, if it is like 0.5 to 1, then there is a persistence of long memory. Next slide, please. We have
It covers everything.
Conclusion, rationale behind our finding is the market quality indicators, that these are the market quality indicators upon which the market moves. And the conclusion will be that portfolio diversification into emerging and frontier markets 6%, because these are the markets which do not, as per the result, are not so efficient. So whenever investors are getting into this market, they need to be cautious about their investments. Thank you very much.
Great, great. The paper really in a global perspective, and I'm sure during lunchtime you will have a lot of questions. Any quick question if you would like to ask, otherwise during lunchtime you can have conversation with him, discussion on this paper. Any quick question please? Okay, thank you, so nice of you. Wish you all the best. The last paper, International Portfolio and Stock Volatility in India. International Portfolio Stock Volatility.
Since we consider beta as a firm risk, so the foreign investors, when they go, they see for macroeconomic factors, and standard deviation takes about unsystematic risk. We took beta, the systematic risk, as a parameter. So since beta has a dichotomous nature of 1 or 0 in the markets, so we took beta 1 and 0 categorical variable, and bivariate logistic regression was applied. In this following previous literature on emerging economies, we took dividend also one of the deciding factor, and dividend payout was taken one variable. So in dividend payout we took two equations. One is if the firm decides to pay dividend and not, so differentiate between dividend paying and non-dividend paying firms, so that we can understand that what is the nature of the foreign institutional investment, what is the pattern, and which adds to the volatility of the stocks or the firm risk. We also took total payout interaction term with foreign institutional investment, that means differing levels of payout and institutional investment, how it affects the beta level or the stock volatility. The methodology, this is the description of the variables which are taken from the prior literature, prior studies. All these variables, we took some control variables which are described in the prior studies, and we applied it in the Indian capital market. Particularly what happens in logistic regression is statistical significance, but it tells about the explanatory power. We wanted to talk about the predictive modeling, where this logistic regression is used as a machine learning, supervised learning in a data science area, data mining algorithm. So we wanted to make it in a supervised learning mode, where we split the data into train and test. So 70% of the sample were trained and 30% were tested in the random sample, and we use this model performance calculations which are derived from the confusion matrix to find out how data mining supervised learning algorithm of this nature of logistic regression is applied and how the response variable changes. So according to prior literature, we have taken a size effect, where the influence of size and the foreign institutional investors effect on the stock volatility has been studied. And then we took dividend policy. We saw that dividend has an impact. This we took at the varying levels of payments, and finally, with all these models, there are also 4 models. We made a model performance test with all these performance parametric measures, including the area under ROC curve, and we found that the 4th model was a suitable model, where the payout decision of the firms was a significant determining factor for these foreign institutional investors to invest in India. So this was our final conclusion, and besides, since the model 4 gave the predictive power as more on the test data set, we could find that these portfolio investors consider the payout and that was the deciding factor for the foreign portfolio investment in India.
Thank you. Within time. Thank you very much. Any question, please? Any single question? Okay, thank you very much. Let me admit very clearly that I have the expert Professor Manikanta Mishra ji, whose paper just concluding that how the finance function is to be managed and greater responsibility on the regulating bodies, that making it socially responsible but financially viable, keeping in mind the social responsibility in the form of employment creation, employment generation regularly, and that too gainful employment, of course protecting instead of I'm not making the concluding remark. I'm requesting Mishra ji to conclude the 6 paper presentation in his own manner. Mishra ji.
Thank you, Dr. Sam. I'll just go quickly what each paper said now. The first paper was basically a review paper of personal norms. And I think Shriram concluded that long way to go till unstructured basis. What I'm not surprised that developed markets are random walk. What I'm surprised is that even now, the developing countries are still showing long memory. Surprises me. That means we are still not efficient. I think we need to investigate why do we continue to be inefficient even in late 2000, in 2015, 2016. So just instead of saying we continue to have long memory, why? I think that will be interesting to look at what is the reasons behind long memory continuing even now. And finally, of course, we have international portfolio stock volatility in India by Chandra Das. And we talk about the international portfolio diversification, not distinction between payers and non-payers. I think we need to address the following question. Is there a difference, is a return between payers and non-payers? Because no investor will only at limit look at dividend
Sir, for your kind acceptance. May I now request our Dean Sir, Professor Parmeshwar Naik, to facilitate our chair of the session.
Check, check, hello. Check, hello, check, check. Check, hey, check, check, hello, check, check, hello, check, hey, check, 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 check.